What's going on, everybody? My name is Kevin Ryan, and welcome to a brand new episode of Indie Watch. Now, I apologize that this show comes a little bit later in the week than what was planned. That is because I had some responsibilities on Wednesday to attend to with regards to work. It's normally my off day, and it was not. So that was a bit frustrating. It pushed everything back, but we're here now, and I'm very excited to share with you Visage. Horror is one of my favorite genres within entertainment media because I feel like there is so much you can do with it. So much you can do with it. I really like the thrill of being scared, that nervous, just like what's gonna happen thrill that comes with movies and games that really do it correctly, that capitalize on atmosphere and setting and lighting and music and things like that, and have it all come together into an experience that terrifies you, and I really enjoy that. Today's game is a game that aims to do all of that. But before we can talk about it, we need to go back and talk about PT.
Watch out. The gap in the door. It's a separate reality. The only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you?
In the summer of 2014, PlayStation 4 owners were quietly handed a free downloadable demo for what was then described as an unannounced indie horror game in development by 7780 Studios. Known only as PT, which stood for Playable Teaser, the demo featured first-person gameplay that saw the player through a repeating instance of a photorealistic foyer that with each pass descended farther and farther into madness. Story exposition was delivered to the player by way of a radio broadcast that detailed news of a brutal murder of an entire family by the father.
On a Sunday afternoon. The day of the crime, the father went to the trunk of his car, retrieved the rifle, and shot his wife as she was cleaning up the kitchen after lunch.
Which set players up for the haunting by the game's antagonist, the mother, Lisa. The most effective kind of horror is rooted in familiarity. The idea of a ghost haunting a house in which their murder occurred was enough to create a consistent and effective tension in anybody playing PT for the first time. These types of hauntings are well documented throughout our history, and whether or not we buy into the stories, given a proper nudge in just the right terrifying direction, and we'll believe in anything. PT capitalized on its use of simple lighting, sound, and visuals, and as a result, became a smash hit among gamers. It wasn't long before the curtain was rolled back, and PT was revealed for what it truly was, a conceptual demonstration for the upcoming Silent Hills, which was to be a collaboration between Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. The series had been struggling as of late, and it seemed the brilliant direction of Kojima combined with Del Toro's expertise in horror and creature design would be just the ticket Silent Hill needed to return to the forefront of horror in gaming. It's unclear exactly what happened next behind closed doors at Konami, but a presumed falling out between them and Kojima resulted in him leaving the publisher and the cancellation of Silent Hills. As for PT, it was completely removed from the PlayStation Store, and now the only way to play it is to find yourself a PlayStation 4 with the game still installed. The future of Silent Hill is uncertain, but PT was around long enough to not only terrify gamers around the world, but inspire developers as well. Sadsquare Studios' Visage places you in a house in the 1980s. The house is centuries old, and as a result, it bears a very diverse history of the numerous families that have lived and died there, and their stories are what carry the experience. Sadsquare's approach to the horror that follows is similar in concept to that of the film The Grudge, in that death in the house leaves a stain that embeds itself within as a memory. Much like Sarah Michelle Gellar was shown the events of a vicious homicide, you'll be shown and relive fragments of the past and witness the transpiration of death. These events will trigger at random, and it means that each playthrough of the game will be different from the last. The full extent of the game's hauntings is still somewhat unclear aside from what has been shown in promotional material, but there is a framework here that to me provides plenty of legroom for terrifying creativity. To explain further, I'm reminded of the film adaptation of 1408, the short story by Stephen King. In it, John Cusack's character spends a single evening in a haunted hotel room, and over the course of that evening, he finds himself drowning in the ocean, freezing cold in a blizzard, and isolated from the very fabric of time and space. It begins in an innocuous hotel room similar to how it may begin in a placid house, but the supernatural can take it anywhere from there. The example we see in Visage is the player looting what appears to be a single leaf from a locked safe. This triggers an event in which they appear to leave the house by way of some sort of factory catwalk system and discover a dilapidated tree upon which someone has hung themselves. The leaf is a fragment of that sorrowful memory, and dark spirits have latched onto it and are now using it to terrify you. What you see is a warped reflection of reality. Perhaps the tree is in the backyard and the person who hung themselves was a factory worker. These are the kinds of connections that Sadsquare has set up to be discovered, and so I'm given confidence that they can make do on their pledge to provide challengingly intricate stories. Gameplay is inspired by classic horror titles of the past, including Phantasmagoria, Penumbra, and of course, Silent Hill. The developers are really hammering home the idea of exploration and being able to pick up and examine objects. One such example they use is the ability to pick up a videotape and insert it into a VHS player. On the surface, it seems like a mundane task, but given the game's horror framework I described earlier, watching an old home video could serve as a trigger for one of the game's hauntings. Now, while being able to search and pick up just about anything may lend itself towards creating a more immersive experience, from a gameplay standpoint, there's a risk of it becoming tiring. Sadsquare references key items and story-related items that will progress the narrative and/or unlock new passages. That's all well and good, but if everything else you can interact with serves no other purpose than to be interacted with, then your game can potentially become a drawer-opening simulator. This was an issue I had with Soma, where their physics-based interactive gameplay really only came into relevance in a few specific instances, while the rest of the time I found myself simply picking up things and throwing them around. Entertaining for a bit, but ultimately unrewarding. There is a huge difference between opening a drawer and picking up a sock, and opening a drawer and finding a pocket watch with "I'm sorry, Grandpa" inscribed on the back of it. One is pointless, while the other is gratifying in its mystery, even if it doesn't lead to anything. I mentioned earlier that the hauntings are triggered at random, and that's fine, but I feel I should mention that there's potential here to also include hauntings that are not random, that are instead triggered by the player discovering a hidden item or a combination of items. Visage should be worth its weight in exploration, and providing an in-game outlet through which players can come together to solve mysteries that unlock specific memories is a great way to achieve that goal, especially since the developers are touting different endings. Finally, Sadsquare makes mention of the importance of managing your stress and keeping your sanity intact as the dark entities are attracted to fear. They don't go into detail about any of this save for a cryptic, "You will learn the effects of stress yourself." It's difficult to speculate on how such a system will be handled in a game like this. We've seen stress management in games before, notably in Red Hook Studios' Darkest Dungeon, but that game uses stress as a catalyst for a change in player stats, and I'm assuming we won't be playing a numbers game in Visage. Personally, I speculate that stress will affect things like your ability to walk or stand, or perhaps your vision. Blurred eyesight may result in susceptibility to fear-inducing phenomena. The environment might be warped in a way designed to disorientate you and lead you further and further down the rabbit hole. Speculating on the effects of stress is easy, but how do you manage it? Do you simply stop moving for a bit, close your eyes, count to 10? Will there be items in the world that ease us back into reality, such as a letter to a lover or a child's drawing? We don't know at this point. Admittedly, much of what I've discussed today is speculation, but that speculation stems from a heightened interest in the game because of what I have seen, and what I have seen looks extremely, extremely promising. The framework that Sadsquare has built for themselves really allows incredible room for diversity in how they scare you and how they terrify us. The idea that this house is hundreds of years old and shelters the dark, stained memories of the families that have lived there before. It's like there's all kinds of possibilities, especially when you think about DLC. They could just stick hauntings in this house that the players can go and uncover themselves. So there's a lot of room for creativity there, and I'm very, very excited for it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Indie Watch. I enjoy creating them as always. If you like what you see and you want to stick around for more, just like and subscribe to the channel and all of that good stuff. I'm sort of rambling on. There will be links in the description to all of the footage that I used in today's video. You can find the links to the developer website, their Kickstarter page. You can find links to the full playthrough of PT if you care to check that out, and all kinds of good stuff down there. So I encourage you all to go out and take a look and support your indie games, as always. All right, my name is Kevin Ryan. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.